Today on Locked On Rockies, it's a new year, a new chance, new hopes. Are we wishfully thinking, or is there a reason for some cautious optimism?
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock On Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the first day of January in the year 2025. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network and the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show. You can fire off your Rockies hot takes. You can let me know what's on your mind when it comes to the Colorado Rockies. Free and streaming, of course, on favorite streaming services as well. But the best way to interact with the show, the best way to be part of the show, the best way to hang out with the show is on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. So head on over there, hit that subscribe button, fire off your Rockies hot takes, and let me know what's on your mind, my favorite Rockies fans out there. You're all my favorite Rockies fans out there. If you're listening to this, you're my favorite Rockies fans because you're tuning in to the Locked On Rockies podcast. I'm Paul Holden, your Rockies fan extraordinaire. Been bringing you this daily Colorado Rockies talk for, I think it's over 4 seasons now, but it's been a while, been a bit, and as well as been following this team my entire life. So we talk Rocks here. We love the Rocks, as frustrating as they may be. And we're going to dive into basically that, continuing this New Year's type of stuff. I want to keep us in a state of a little bit of optimism. But how much optimism should we have? And let's try to define what success is for the Colorado Rockies in 2025. We're going to do that on today's episode, but before we do that, got to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, so I wanted to dive in, and we've talked about this before, right? This isn't the first time that we've discussed the concept of what does success for the Colorado Rockies look like in 2025? And it's a layered question, because the obvious easy answer would be wins, right? Winning ball games, making the playoffs, this, that, and the other thing. However, I think you're just going to set yourself up for more and more frustration if you can't at least find the smaller victories, because success is going to come on smaller levels. Success is going to come from this team improving in areas that have been problems right away. What would be a successful step, or what would be a part of success or a reason for success in 2025? Cutting down on the strikeouts. Making sure that, I mean, Ezekiel Tovar, I think, set a record for the most swings and misses in a season type of thing. I mean, there is so much just packed into just that category that in order to get to that top level, that big, thing of success, that big defining thing of success of winning, the Rockies have to build up on the path up to that step. They have to do the problem that we've been seeing a lot with the Rockies is it's a lot of stuff at the basic fundamental levels that they need to improve on. And again, it's not that they're constantly committing errors or these types of things. It's more of they need to close games. They need to get back to being a competitive offense. They need to be able to rely on their pitchers to get outs and get the job done. So that means the offense is going to have to take better approaches and not strike out as much. That's a thing of, it starts there to build up to that overall success. So the Rockies could see some success in these smaller areas, and that is still a good sign for them. That's kind of what I'm saying. And I know how much hair splitting I'm already doing, but that's the stage. That's the point of where we're at right now with the Rockies. We're not able to sit here and say, well, these new free agent acquisitions, these new players coming in, these new things are coming in that are going to change it, with the exception of maybe some exciting youngsters coming through, possibly pitching this year. This isn't a team that we can sit there and just be like, oh, what are we, we can count on a lot of change, something. I mean, we know a lot about this team going into this year. The major difference right now for the Colorado Rockies is going to be the impact of the pitching staff, of course, and the change at second base. But when you look at the rest of the diamond, when you look at the rest of the positions, you're bringing back players. So we can't sit here and dive into that type of stuff to those changes will lead to success. So we have to count on the idea of development, like we talked about yesterday, like we've been talking about. This team has to show that they can get more out of their players, that they can get the improvement out of their players. And I know I already talked a lot about it, but that's what I mean. So when I'm thinking of success in 2025, I'm thinking at the smaller levels because I think that will lead to the wins. But the Rockies can still be successful even if their win-loss record isn't great, but their offense is in a much better spot. They're competing as an offense in a better spot. They're not striking out as much. They're scoring more runs. We're seeing more players contribute to the offense. The Rockies can still be successful if their pitching staff, maybe it's not great, but it's not the worst in baseball. The bullpen, the same type of thing. The Rockies need to get themselves off the bottom. That will be successful. It's not over. It's, of course, not going to be immediately translating to, boom, the Rockies can fix those and they're going to be right in the mix and they're going to be great and they're going to be wonderful and they're going to be excellent. No, that's not the case. But at least we can be seeing something that's building towards something and setting the stage for an interesting 2026. MLB.com sent an interesting thing out as part of their letters. They were talking about one resolution that might happen for each team. And the Rockies was the fact that this team might just let the youth fully take over. And there's a point at this season where, and it will happen frequently, where there will only be two players on the plus side of 30 in the lineup, and that's Chris Bryant and Ryan McMahon, a third if Jacob Stallings is in there. Your pitching staff will change in there as well. But there is a lot of youthful talent on this team. So if we can see these players prove themselves at the major league level, some guys, in bounce back years, guys like Tovar and Doyle, and keeping it consistent and building on that stuff, that will be successful for the Colorado Rockies. The big question is, I guess, can they get there? And we'll dive into that in a little bit, but that's what I'm looking for when I'm defining success for the Rockies. It's not just going to come down to wins and losses. It's going to come down to, hey, look at the Rockies' improvement in one-run games. Look at the Rockies' improvement as a bullpen in innings 7 through 9. Look at the Rockies' offense improvements in striking out and walking more and getting on base more and stealing more bases. Those little areas, as long as we can start seeing the Rockies not be a bottom of the barrel team statistically, which we have seen now for 2 seasons in a row, that is successful. But again, I totally understand that you just got listening to me ramble on for minutes about all these little areas and all these little things and oh, good, but I'm just picking and choosing. I'm ignoring the big picture. I don't think you can focus on the big picture without looking at the small things, especially in the year of baseball, where you have to follow the team through 162 and see how they perform throughout 162. It's going to matter how how do the Rockies can they avoid those big losing streaks like we've talked about a lot? Can they navigate a difficult schedule again? Can they perform better on the road? Another area where you can say that we're seeing success with the Rockies is if they can bounce back and be a team that can just be even close to 500. Close to 500 is probably a big ask, but just I'm talking even in the universe, the stratosphere of being close to a 500 team on the road. These are the areas I'm looking at. Success for me, for the Rockies, will not just be defined by wins and losses. It's going to be defined by the statistical finishes and the statistical performances of players, as well as how the Rockies handle big situations in key parts of games. Because I don't think that 2025 is the year that the Rockies are going to take a massive step and start being one of the most surprising teams in baseball. But I do think that if the Rockies improve in the right areas and show growth in these areas that we've talked about in this first segment, that will set the stage for an interesting 2026 where you can try to use no free agent multi-year deals. Maybe that's where you bring someone else in. That's where you can bring in that bat or bring in something that can address some of your issues that you discover throughout 2025. So now that I've set the stage for areas that I hope, that I think if the Rockies improve and they will be successful, should we be optimistic or pessimistic about that happening? Let's talk about that coming up next in today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, because FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook, and they got a great deal for you right now as we head into the final week of the NFL regular season. New customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Yes, that's $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. You have so many ways to pick up a W on FanDuel. You can check out the live betting. You can check out the parlays, the props, everything that you need to get in on the action is available on the easy-to-use and secure FanDuel app. You can bet on which players will score a touchdown, how many points each team will score, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast for free and streaming on your favorite streaming service, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network and the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show by firing off your Rockies hot takes, clicking those like buttons on the videos, subscribing as well. Shout outs to you again, my everydayers, and all you Rockies fans who supported the show all year and are going to start this year off great as well. All right, so we were talking about defining success for the Rockies, and I think the success is going to be defined in the smaller areas and improvement in statistical categories instead of just focusing on wins and losses. But how optimistic am I? Or should I be pessimistic about this going forward? And I think that both have reason. I think if you are a Rockies fan right now and you fall into either as feeling like you're an optimistic or pessimistic, I think both sides are valid in where they stand. And I because there's no reason for you to fully buy into the product that the Rockies have with these young guys anyway, even with some of the things that excite you and a new pitching staff. This team doesn't have enough and isn't going into 2025 with enough to make those that are pessimistic about this team change their mind. You can be a pessimist and still excited about Tovar and Doyle and a Jones bounce back. But that doesn't make you feel any better about what does 2025 look like for Chris Bryant? What does 2025 look like for Ryan McMahon? Will Estrada be able to play at will Estrada be able to be a contributor? What are they going to do with right field? And are they actually going to be able to get these prospects and young guys the playing time they need? And what happens if everything that we always talk about with high-profile pitchers covered into cores, what happens if it doesn't go well with the youngsters? All of that is totally valid skepticism. There's after back-to-back years of 100 losses, no big additions to the team, no changes to the coaching staff. I mean, this all sets the stage for pessimism. It's not a surprise when I look at the Locked On Rockies YouTube comment section and there's people that are skeptical about this team, that are skeptical about the players. And in terms of development, no one's ever there's no true superstar on the Colorado Rockies right now. There's potential superstars. But remember, Jones, I guess Jones can fit into there, but Tovar and Doyle did not make the All-Star game last year. And they need to play at their level and then some to get to that level. The defense of Doyle is and the improved offense last year raised a lot of eyebrows, certainly. But it's going to take a lot for this team. And this team, again, when they open the season, we've looked at the schedule. I thought it was going to be a little easier, but it's not quite as easy as it's not much easier. This is a team that's going to start the season, and you're going to see big names sooner rather than later. You're seeing Philly, you're seeing Milwaukee, San Diego, LA, the new look Nationals who are going to be interesting and who are successful against the Rockies, Kansas City, and a Cincinnati and Atlanta. I mean, that is there are a lot of teams on there that are going to make the case for trying to be playoff teams, and some of those teams making a case for being a lot more aggressive or going a lot deeper in the playoffs. Good news for the Rockies, though. No last bit of the season finish with the Dodgers. It's just San Francisco instead. But my point is, this is a team that's going to have to step up to the challenge immediately. And to be hesitant about their ability to do so is valid. But on the flip side of this, if the pieces fall the way that they could fall, if the players take the steps in the right direction that we're hoping for, and say again, how much of a game changer could it be a healthy Chris Bryant playing DH? But we've had that same conversation. So there's a lot of stuff that if it does start going the way of the Rockies, it's going to start being really interesting. And it's especially going to get really interesting if the young pitchers come up and are exciting. If Dollander comes up and he starts dealing at Coors Field, the energy and the pulse of the Rockies will start to thump a little bit. There will be enough of a baseline to start building at least a little bit of excitement and optimism. Because deep down, there is a chance that this Rockies team is much better as an offense if they can if they can figure out how to stop striking out so much and be the consistent hitters and be the damage dealers that they know they are. At least 4 of the Rockies can be really, really good on offense. Jones, Tolia, Tovar, and Doyle. Mixed in with the fact that Ryan McMahon, if he doesn't have to shoulder so much, if he doesn't have to be so important to the middle of the lineup and maybe can slip into other areas and get a little bit more comfortable or maybe move up into like around that 3 spot, that might take a little pressure off Ryan McMahon, and that could lead to hopefully a little bit more consistency there. Maybe the young rookie catching core comes up and they start really contributing, and the Rockies are able to flip Jacob Stallings at the deadline and go to 2 young catchers and really embrace doing that. My point is there are possibilities that exist that can show the Rockies can rebound this year. And there is reason to buy into hopefully Nolan Jones is that first player, and once he's healthy and can be consistent, he can be that player. Same with the Doyle offense being consistent, Tovar continuing to grow, and Tolia hitting his expectations. There's enough there that if those guys start moving in the right direction, things are gonna get interesting for the Colorado Rockies. So that's why I hold on to some optimism, because I do think the Rockies are still in an area where the jury's not out on all of the young talent on the team. The clock is ticking. The decisions need to be made, and some of these guys are certainly going to need more playing time. But there are signs, there are reasons to be encouraged about this next version of this Rockies team. Especially as someone is going to look to emerge to fill the leadership role of Charlie Blackmon. And there's a lot of stuff as this team is looking to, like we talked about yesterday, this could be the first real cementation. That's not, they can really actually start to show a bit of what this team's identity is, this version of the Rockies' identity. And I know I keep bringing up that word, but it's important, because the Rockies need to know what to buy into and need to know what to build on. And I think that 2025 is the year that's going to show the Rockies, all right, here's what we stick with. Here's what we got. Here's where we need to improve. That opens the door to add on to in 2026 and set the stage for adding at the trade deadline in 2025. You're going to have a good idea of where you're at and who these guys are if they're healthy by the time the trade deadline rolls around. Some are going to need the extra time in the second half to bounce back. But if you're really, again, eyes focused on 2026, you can find and pinpoint the weaknesses there and start building to address those weaknesses as early as the trade deadline in 2025. But it has to, I mean, this has to come back to the front office making the moves and this front office changing it up a little bit as well, breaking up their status quo and changing up things there. And that's where most of my pessimism lies. I think for the players themselves, I think that there's still enough reason to be optimistic that they can take steps in the right direction. But my pessimism about the front office remains as great as always. All right, let's wind down the show here with some YouTube comments. That'll be coming up in segment number 3 of today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes Gametime. You know you love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy, and all the memories that you can make at all of them. Maybe it was at a concert last year that you loved seeing. Maybe it was that big game that you went to. Gametime has made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature, Gametime Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. There's so many great deals on the Gametime app, not to mention the all-in pricing feature that you can toggle at the home screen and that view from your seat. So you're going to be confident you know where you're sitting and what you're spending your money on. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Game time. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast for free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here, Locked On Podcast Network, reading your Rockies thoughts here on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. Let's see here. Tracy says, Paul, you've got to be one of the most positive Rockies fans out there. As long as Black is the manager and Monfort is the owner, they will remain one of the worst teams in baseball. The criticism for the front office remains. I know it's frustrating. And again, this is we've talked about this total prove it year for the front office and the those people behind the scenes, and including Bud Black as well. Skylar Christensen, I think Lawrence would be interesting to use as an opener. I'd rather see one of our hard throwers closing out games. Also, from what I could tell, Lawrence struggled in big moments. As an opener, I think it can help him mentally. I also think it could be a good strategy to help our starting pitchers who tended to give up a lot of runs early last year, and we had to play from behind most of the beginning of the season. Great point. The Rockies were not great in the first inning there, and it would be interesting. I don't necessarily know a lot about the impacts of having an opener and what they have seen, as you know, a couple of teams have done that, but it would be interesting. And Justin Lawrence being in that role certainly could be an interesting option to take there, because good speed, you know, that sweeper set the stage the right direction and just kind of maybe buck that bad trend of the first inning. That's an interesting thought there. Let's see. Tony here is a little skeptical about the headline. If these players bounce back for the Colorado Rockies, things will go well in 2025. And I got some ellipses. Things will go well. But that's what I mean about that pessimism and that skepticism being valid and warranted. There are too many warning signs as well with this team for you to fully buy into just hoping that a couple of players bounce back and things are all fine and dandy with them and everything's all puppies and candy canes again. There is total valid reason to sit there and just say, is that really enough? Is that enough for this team to actually be competitive, especially in this era of baseball? So, you know, Tony, I think you are right to those ellipses there. Jim says Rockies fans, especially the diehards, deserve a World Series championship. And I get it will probably be 3 or 4 years out, if not at least longer, but they deserve it regardless. Why doesn't Dick Monfort in the front office listen to the fans, or at least the experts? Remember, they believe they got it figured out. But Again, I always like when I criticize the front office, I do like to put the disclaimer of I'm not a GM. I am a unsuccessful outside the park baseball player. So, it's just the fan coming out of me. Caden here says the show keeps getting better. Thank you, Caden. I appreciate that. Christopher says, this is back a little throw. I love when people comment on older episodes because they're catching up on a topic they like here. Christopher says, I've seen both of them play, and this is in regards to Drew Romo and Hunter Goodman. I've seen both of them play in the last few years in high A Spokane. They're a great duo. Goodman has infield and outfield position flex, more power than Romo. Well, Romo still holds his own at the plate, and he can attack it from both sides and is a more defensive-minded backstop. He's so diligent. He's nerdy about baseball. I love it. Both great guys. God, you love to hear that, too. Lots of reasons to still be excited for Romo, too, even with last year being what it was. Hey, he got experience at the major league level. He got that experience. That is going to pay off. And hopefully the Rockies can find a way to get Hunter Goodman the at-bats he needs so we can continue to see how he will develop as a player here as well. Jess, let's see. Jess says, all this stuff leads me to believe the ownership will relocate the team. Cutting budget is not a good sign. Yeah, I don't know if Jess, you're still the same one that's been concerned about the Rockies movement. Still don't think that's very far from happening, but it's just more of a setting themselves up for the future, I think, type of thing. But always something to keep in your back of your mind. You never know with owners. Let's see. This one's a little Isolo. I don't know. I'm sorry. This one's not a name actually spelled. You never know what YouTube does. Man, I know exactly what you're talking about. Born and raised in Colorado, 96. Only have ever known the Rockies, but the same product is put on the field. I love the team, but at what point do I lose hope? It feels like 2007 is the only World Series we're going to get. I have season tickets, and I still don't want to give up, but it feels like I'm being sold a dream, and the worst part is I know it. I wish I could make you feel more comfortable, but I think if you hold on, if you power through, if you stick through, and you're already a diehard, you're a season ticket holder, you've been following the team, if you've already rode the wave this far, why not see where it takes you? Are you going to start all the way over with a new team at this point and your interest? I don't know. I think however, take your season ticket commitment seriously. And it's something I've actually talked about on the pod before. If it's something that isn't in the cards for you, that makes sense. And that actually is something you should let the Rockies know about. If you are curious about moving on from your season tickets, I think they will listen to you, folks. I promise you they will listen, at least hear you. Don't know if it'll be a big change, but they will hear you as well. Matthew says, Paul, trust me, it's not goofy to say the Rockies winning the World Series would be life-changing. Rockies baseball is almost all I care about. I've been a fan since day one. I'll wear my Rockies all day, every day. Someday it'll be worth it. And yes, I agree. Folks, thank you so much for all your great comments. Thank you so much for being part of the show. Thank you for firing off those Rockies hot takes. You can do so as well on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. Head on over there. You can see the comments. You see all the videos, all that good stuff. Really appreciate it, folks. And that is going to do it for today's episode. Thank you so much again for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen of the day, go check out Locked On MLB. Our guy Sully's got you covered with more news from around the world of baseball. And if you need more Colorado sports coverage, Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Nuggets, and Locked On Buffs. Free and streaming on your favorite streaming services. Until next time, I'm Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.